Sorry. Yeah. I want to welcome, first of all, Pramaha Batskor Pio Baso, whom we've been seeing and have been talking with us. And I'm hoping you can somehow let him show his slides.
All right.
Right.
Okay, shall I begin now?
Yes.
Namatu Ratanataya may pay my homage to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha. Good morning, everyone, and let me introduce myself a little bit. And my name is Venerable Pramaha Pasagon Bio Paso. I'm from Thailand, but I have been in the UK since 2006. I'm now living at the Buddha Patipa Temple, the first Thai Buddhist temple established in the UK since 1966. I'm very honored and pleased to get involved in this Multi Faith Forum. And I was invited by Jeff Morris to talk about Thai Buddhism in practice, especially in Thailand. Well, my topic will cover ordination, monastic daily routines, what the monks normally do in daily life, and the thinking behind guilt what, because as you might know that there are beautiful temples in many Buddhist countries, especially in Thailand. And if the time allows, I may talk about some aspects of teaching. Next slide, please. Right, before I go into the detail, I just would like to remind you all that in Thailand, although we follow Theravada tradition, there are two major schools in Buddhism, Theravada and Mahayana. The Theravada Buddhism is mainly practiced in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. But in Thailand, we do have two sub-schools, Mahanigaya and Dhammayuttika Nikaya. Mahanigaya is the traditional and the majority. There are approximately 200,000 monks plus 60,000 novice monks. And then the Dhammayuttika Nikaya, the reform founded by King Rama IV in 1825, there are approximately 30,000 monks plus 5,000 novice monks. And from the first one, the Mahanigaya, the traditional and the majority. Apart from this, we also have two. Next, click next, please. Not this one. I think you missed something. Could you please go back? There is something. All right. I think there must be something wrong. Please go back. Please go back. Right. Well, apart from this, there are two kinds of tradition: city dwelling and forest dwelling, which means that there are monks living in the town, focusing on education and administration, and monks living in the forest focus on meditation practice. Next slide, please. Well, when we talk about ordination, and there are at least three purposes of ordination: those who would like to be ordained, they would like to free themselves from suffering, they would like to stop the cycle of birth and death. And ordination is also an opportunity to receive an education and training. In my case, I became novice monk when I was only 13 years old after finishing the primary school in 1988. So in my case, I became a novice monk in order to receive an education and training. And on some occasion, the Thai men, after there is 20 or after graduation, they might like to express gratitude to their parents by becoming a monk just for a temporary time, like 1 month or 2 months, even 3 months. Some of them stay forever. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Right, so I just would like to show you some pictures. On top, those are young boys who become a novice monk just for temporary time during their summer holiday or school holiday. And we normally have like a 15-day course, I mean 1 month course for the young boys like them. Again, in my case, I'm different from them because the purpose of my ordination is to receive education and monastery. And down the bottom here, and you might able to spot me. I thought then I was about 14 years old. Yeah, 14 years old. This is me when I was 14 years old. And in I think in 1989 something, I went to study at the big monastery in the east of Thailand, far away from my hometown. To become a novice monk, you must be at least 7 years old, but according to the law, you must complete your primary school first. So in my case, I have completed my primary school, and then I was told by my parents to become a novice monk in order to receive education and training. Next slide, please. Then in 1995, when I was 21 years old, I received a full ordination as a monk. So full ordination means that you're now old enough to receive a higher ordination. But if you are under 20 years old, you can only become a novice monk. On the 1st of March, 1995, I received an ordination from the monk in my mother temple in Bangkok. After I became monk, and then I served and fellow monks with some drink. And so this happened after my ordination ceremony. Next slide, please. Then let's talk about what the monks normally do in their daily life. And the schedules can be various depending on their tradition. In some monasteries, the monks may get up very early in the morning, like 3:30, and then they get together for morning chanting at 4 o'clock, followed by meditation. But in some monasteries, they may begin with alms round by carrying the bowl and walk around the local community to collect food. And when they return to their local monastery, and then they normally eat lunch. Traditionally, we eat from the bowl like this. This is the traditional way. But in many cases, monks eat normally from plate. Next slide, please. Apart from alms round, eating breakfast or lunch, in our daily life, we do chanting morning and evening. We normally chant twice a day, and after chanting, we may meditate, and during the daytime, we may meditate, walking meditation and sitting meditation. In the town, novice monks or monks may go to school to study scripture, like the Pali canon or Pali language. Next slide, please. Then I want to show you the beautiful temples. For those who haven't been to the Buddha Patipat temple before, so this is the Buddha Patipat temple where I'm living now. It's covered with snow. And next slide, please. I will tell you later the thinking behind the guild word. So in Sara ground, we have the main temple, and this is the house where all the monks are living in. Next to the house, we also have the bell tower. And bell tower is necessary in Thailand because every morning some monk will be appointed to ring the bell to wake everyone up, and also to give notice for the morning chanting time, for the lunch time, for all gathering that we normally use the bell. Next slide, please. Inside our main temple, this is our trial room, and there are Buddha statues. There are 3 Buddha statues here, and apart from that, there are mural painting. Next slide, please. Yeah, I will tell you later why the temple like to be built. And I also want to show you my mother temple in Bangkok, and I'm from Wat Mahathat, and located in central Bangkok, not far from the Grand Palace. And the reason why that the temple was named Wat Mahathat, because we have the pagoda, which contain the holy relics of the Buddha. So these are the pagoda. And this is the main temple. Inside the main temple, we have the huge Buddha statue, which was probably erect over 200 years old. Next slide, please. And this is the temple of Emerald Buddha, and the most important temple in Thailand. And next slide, please. I also would like to show you many other beautiful temples. From here, you can see the Temple of Dawn, This is the temple in the north of Thailand, the Golden Mouth, and then another temple near the Jan Swing. Next slide, please. Again, this is the Temple of Dawn. Yeah. And this is the highlight of this temple. Wat Arun, for those who have been to Thailand before, you might have visited this temple. Next slide, please. Right, I think I have some time. I would like to show you some aspect of the Buddhist teaching. You might have heard about the Four Noble Truths or the Middle Eightfold Path, but I just would like to focus on the Middle Eightfold Path, on the Middle Way. The Middle Way or Eightfold Path is the main teaching or central teaching of all schools in Buddhism, which tell us how to live a happy life. We begin with right view or understanding, and then right thought or right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, or right diligence, right mindfulness, and then right concentration. When these Middle Eightfold Paths are applied in our daily life, and then we expect to live happily and peacefully. Next slide, please. Apart from the Middle Eightfold Path, and because this Middle Eightfold Path will eventually lead you to achieve Nibbana or Nirvana. You might be familiar with the word Nirvana. And there are at least 3 steps that will lead you to achieve Nibbana. Sila, morality. For example, we may begin with the 5 precepts, by not killing any living beings, by not stealing, by being sincere and faithful to your spouse or your partner, by not lying, by not taking intoxication. And then we move to the second step, samadhi. Samadhi is a kind of meditation. Last but not least, manya. That will be the final step that will lead you to attain Nibbana. From our tradition, from the Theravada tradition, all the monks are celibate. We are not allowed to get married unless if you stop being a monk first. You are free to leave anytime if you're unhappy, living in the monastic life. You are free to leave anytime. Next slide, please. Right. I also would like to show you some aspect of Gamma. Gamma simply means action. And here I show you 2 kinds of action, good action and bad action. The good action must come from your good heart, which are rooted by non-greed, non-hatred, and wisdom. For example, you are kind, you are generous, you are friendly, and you are sympathetic. On the contrary, bad action are rooted by greed, when we are greedy, when we are jealousy, when we are angry. That's because of the hatred. That's because of the delusion. And next slide, please. Right here, and I think you need to click again. Yeah. So this is the summary of the Gamma, law of action. You reap what you sow. Whatever action I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. So this is the summary or the conclusion of the law of action or Gamma. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Right, I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and you can stop sharing screen now. Well, I thought I will take questions at the end, and I'm not sure if someone would like to ask me a question now or question at the end after everyone finished their presentation. Thank you again for your attention.
We haven't got any individual question about what you said at the moment. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think we'd like to take the questions at the end if we may. And that is so kind. We very much enjoyed that presentation. Thank you very, very much. And now, if he's here, and I hope he is, I'd like to move straight on. I'd like to bring it forward a little bit and bring in Wayne Lee. Is Wayne Lee with us? Yes. Wayne.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, we were hoping that we could bring you in now because it seemed more appropriate and helpful.
Hello, Lee.
Hi, yeah, I just got a presentation. I just got a PowerPoint. Yeah. Thanks for Jeffrey to invite me for this talk about Tibetan Buddhism. Because we just only have 10 minutes, I just want to show you a bit of Tibetan culture and the experience with my master. And I was an interior designer before I met my master. This is the picture of our master. He is a Lama and retreat in the Tibet for almost 30 years. This is the first time I met him was 15 years ago. I was the first time I met him. Next one, please. Yeah, this is what I was doing before I met my master. I was an interior designer. I like the things very much simplicity. So most of my design are very simple things. So later on, I feel there's some kind of connection with the Buddhism culture, and it's all about purify your mind and purify your life. So it's all kind of similar things. Next one, please. And 15 years ago, and because I've been in the UK for almost 20 years now, and every year I fly back to China, and this was the 15 years ago. And when I fly back to China, my friend, she showed me a picture of a master, she said, and there's a master is come out to the city, do you want to see him? Because most of the Tibetan Lama, they are living in the Tibet, you barely see them in the city of China. So when I saw his picture, and I feel kind of, I really want to see him. He's kind of very close. I don't know why. And then I bought a flight ticket from the South China to the North China to see him. And he was sitting on like my friend, they booked a hotel room for him to stay there for a week to let him to see the people to come to see him. And you see the people sitting around the bed, they're from Hong Kong, they're from Malaysia, they're from Thailand, they're from mainland China, everywhere to come to see my master. That was the first time I saw him. About 15 years ago, I started to get to know about the Tibetan Buddhism. Next one, please. Yeah, and after that, I continue my experience with the Tibetan Buddhism and my master for almost 15 years now. And I've been to Tibet for many times. And this is the picture I took about 10 years ago when I went to my master's monastery. It's far away from the city. It's very like it's inside the mountain. There's not many people there. They just like his family has been there for about 600 years. His father, his grandfather, he's like they're all the practitioner of the Tibetan Buddhism. Next one, please. And this is the monastery of my master. Is on the, you can see is in the middle of the surrounding by the mountain, and there's not many things there actually. And I see when almost the whole day they just sit there to practice the Tibetan Buddhism. There's nothing else they can do. So their whole life are from there. Next one, please. And this is a retreat center for their monastery. It's next to the main building. There's about 20 to 30 Lama, and inside this retreat center, when the Lama they move in the retreat center, they will stay inside for about 3-4 months each time. So when you move in, you don't come out. You don't talk to the people outside of the building, and you're just like within a few months, you just stay inside completely. And next one, please. Yeah, this is the picture I took about 10 years ago when I went to the monastery. It was in the winter time. It was very cold. It's in the minor 30 degree almost in the winter, and there's no electricity. There's no light. Even during the night, there's no light, and there's no heater. There's no anything. It's very like a living condition, is really crucial there. I feel like. Next one, please. And this is the picture of my master. The left one is my master with his daughter, and in the city, they're giving a blessing to the people. The right one is he's sitting in his own chair to giving blessing to the local people. Next one, please. And this picture was taken in about 15 years ago. My master sitting in his chair. You can see his finger is pointing to a stone, and the black one, which has his own footprint on it. Because when the Tibetan Lama, when they have a tradition, when they achieve a certain level, they usually like to leave a handprint on the stone or leave a footprint on the stone to prove some sort of like a level they are achieving. So you can see his own footprint on the stone, on the one his finger is pointing to. But not very clear, this picture. Next one, please. And this is the small lamas, the children's, and because the monastery has about 100 lama, around 100 lama. Mostly they just starting there, they just living there. So that's the picture showing the lamas there. Yeah, next one, please. And this is the picture of their kitchen, and the children's they're eating in the kitchen, because the kitchen there, they don't have lots of things, and so mostly they just eating some very simple food, and it doesn't like we are living in the city. It's a completely different world there. The next one, please. And that's the even younger children. They are study in they have a school, not school, but just a room there. Every morning when the Lama, they go to the monastery to practice, the children will come here for study. There's a Lama to teaching them the language or things. Next one, please. This is one of the typical room of the children's they're living. You can see it doesn't like what we can see in the city. It's in the Tibet, it's inside the mountain. So in the minus 20, 30 degree, that's how they live there. It's in a very poor condition. There's not many things. And even in the night, I feel, because I was there in the winter, when the degrees go under the minus 20 degree, you just feel completely freezing. So the children, they're all living in such condition there. Next one, please. And this is another picture. And my master, because my master, his family are from that place, from that particular area for about 600-700 years already. So his father, his grandfather, his father of his grandfather, they all achieved the highest level of the Buddhism practice. So this is one of the cave they bring me to. You can see I'm stepping up to the there's a cave on the top of the picture, which is the grandfather, my master's grandfather, when he was alive. Every day he just, because you see the staircase was made about 10 years old. Before that, there wasn't a staircase there. So the grandfather of my master, every morning he just fly up to that cave and to do his meditation there for one day. And then in the evening, he fly down to the ground and go home. So every day he just fly up and fly down. So all the people from the village around the area, they all know about this. So my master, his grandfather was very famous there in that area, because every day he can fly up and he can fly down. So, and during that time, about 200 years ago, the people, they don't have the watch, they don't have the things to see the time, like what time a day, what time is now today. So every day he just like see where they see this master. When he fly up, they know, okay, it's morning, we need to go out to work. And when he fly down, and then they know it's time to go home now. So it was very famous things in the local. So this picture is showing the cave on the middle of the cliff. You see, yeah, next one, please. And this is a picture of my master, his father. When his father alive, he achieved the topest level of the Tibetan Buddhism. So when the Lama, they achieve a certain level, they can turn the physical things into a different situation. Like we are living in a physical world, but mentally, if you practice mentally up to the certain level, you can turn the physical things in a different situation. The left picture you can see here is he just leave his handprint on a stone, because we see the stone is kind of like hard things, but in their eye, these sort of things, you all can change it. You all can turn these physical things into different situation. And the right picture you can see is a handprint he lived in the cave and on the stone as well. Next one, please. Yeah, this is the picture you can see. I was there. My master, his father, and in his meditation, in his retreat cave, he just left the hand on the stone. It's from years ago.
Very good sound.
Next one, please. But this is just a cave in the middle of the mountain. They just bring me to there. My master, he was retreat in this cave for about 6 months. You can't. When I was there, when I saw the cave, I can't imagine like someone can sit inside such a cave for 6 months, because there's no protection, there's nothing there, and probably there's an animal outside in the evening. So is completely freezing in the night. So my master, because they retreat in a different place, but he retreat in this room for about half year. I want to show you the way how they do the meditation. Next one, please. And this is a bit of like the Tibetan, the picture showing the Lama, the practitioner, how they do the meditation in Tibet. I guess probably not many people have seen this before. And this is the monastery, and lots of the practitioners, they build this sort of small box, and it's just like the size of the fridge. And you just sit inside for 3 years. For 3 years, it's completely dark. You just put yourself inside the box for 3 years to practice the meditation. Next one, please. And yeah, this is a close look for this small box. It's only for 1 people, and you sit inside and you can't do anything. It's completely dark. You just, yeah, that's what they call the dark box meditation. Next one, please. And this is the last picture I want to show to. This is a Lama. This is a Lama. He passed away about 4 weeks ago. It's just the New Year's of 2021. And this Lama, he is very famous. And you can see his body, because when he was alive, he was about 1.8 meter tall. But you see his body when after he passed away, his body shrink to a small size, like a children's size. It's very small now. If continue live for another week, it probably can shrink to an even smaller size. So this is kind of like a Tibetan Buddhism. And when they achieve the topest level, they call this sort of a rainbow body. So the human's body, our physical body, will turn into light. Your most of your body will melt into light, and to disappear, to melt into the light. So this is a picture of the rainbow body. Probably some of you have heard about this, but maybe some of you haven't heard about this, because as a normal human, when we die and then we body, they can turn the physical things, turn the physical body into light, to become different things. Yeah, next one, please. Yeah, this is the last picture, and of my master, his monastery. And what I want to what I want to show is a bit the whole PowerPoint, the whole conversation is about a bit of the Tibetan Buddhism, and you can see it's very different from the things we see from the city. They are almost like from a completely different world. And most of the Lama, they spend their whole life in the mountain and to practice the Buddhism. And even in the Tibetan Buddhism, they have their own way to practice. It's kind of different with other tradition, the Buddhism tradition, and because they have their own tradition for very long time. So you see the end of the practice. They mostly go for the rainbow body, and they go for different routes. So, well, this is about my presentation. Yeah, thanks.
That was amazing. I think there'll be so many questions about this.
Yeah, sorry, just because it's not just 10 minutes, so I just show you a very brief of the Tibetan Buddhism. It's not much information, but actually there's a lot more things. But within 10 minutes, I think that's all.
What you showed was most impressive, and I think there will be a lot of questions. But let's just leave that for the moment, and then we'll bring it. We'll see what comes up. By golly, I think I've got a lot of questions anyway.
Lots of miracle.
Yeah, thank you. That was so interesting. I mean, I'm sure. Well, I won't ask questions now. We just thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
and I'm just wondering if Martin would like to talk about Zen Buddhism now, because for good reasons, I would like then to bring in, well, I've got King Chung Lo, but I never know what name to call him because I know him by so many different names. But I wonder if Martin would like to, would be prepared to talk to us now about Zen.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Yes. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you all right. I presume the rest can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation, obviously, and thanks also for the presentations that I've heard, which are indeed very interesting. I think I don't actually have anything to show you, so I'm afraid it's just going to be my voice. But I wanted to, thinking about what to actually present, I think perhaps what might be useful, because we've already covered a little bit of ground as regards some of the essential teachings of the Buddha and so forth, is perhaps just talk a little bit about my own experience, because as you can see, I mean, originally I'm British. I wasn't born as a Buddhist. I'm a convert, and I converted in my 20s. I'd done, like a lot of people, I'd done some reading around the subject, and I'd actually also been on a retreat, on a Zen retreat as well. That was in the UK. I came down to London in the mid-80s and joined the Buddhist Society in London. And I think it's probably important to point out that my own experience, my own personal experience, has been in Western forms of Zen, Zen Buddhism. And I think it's important to say that because the experience of Zen in the West is actually somewhat differentiated from Zen as it's perhaps practiced in Japan. And I'll go into a little bit of detail about what I actually mean by that, because obviously in essential ways they're the same, but in sort of day-to-day there are differences. And just to say that Zen itself, the Zen school that I follow, originally it arose in China around about the 5th and 6th century of the Common Era. And then around 1,000 years ago, it came through, or just slightly under, it came through to Japan. And the school that I follow is called Rinzai Zen, and the lineage is that I follow is actually from Japan. My own teacher trained in Kyoto from 1960 to 72. She was an Austrian by birth and obviously a convert as well, and had gone over and came back with the express intention of bringing Zen to the West. Of course, she wasn't the first person to do that. Some of the earlier people who did that were Japanese, people like D.T. Suzuki, who was obviously a famous author in the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, and also Sokean as well, who taught in New York in the 1930s. And a little bit, Suzuki wrote prolifically about Zen for Westerners. And I think it's important to understand that what he wrote about was very much this sort of image of the monk sitting under the tree, as it were, practicing meditation, seeking enlightenment. Just to explain, the Zen school is part of the Mahayana, and Venerable Framaha has explained that Buddhism has these two strands to it. The older strand is Theravada, and then the other schools, such as Tibetan Buddhism or Shin Buddhism or Pure Land Buddhism and Zen as well, belong to what's called the Mahayana. These are schools that developed later in the historical process. But people like Suzuki taught very much a Zen that appealed to Western, scientifically minded, humanistic mindsets. He was very clear that was the thing that was going to attract us, and because of that, the impression of Zen in the West has differed from it in the East. There's an interesting story that the American Philip Kapleau, who wrote a famous seminal work called 3 Pillars of Zen in the 1960s, I believe, he went over to Japan with another American, and they were shocked to discover that the Zen in Japan was very different to the Zen that they to the view that they had formed around Zen from the writings of that they had come across. Because of course, Zen in Japan, obviously there's as I'm sure you can tell, Buddhism has a strong monastic element, but it also has a very strong lay following as well. And rather like in Christianity, the lay following is much bigger than the monastic ones. But the monastics very much, as it were, their role is to teach Buddhism, and certainly to teach things like right living, the ethical side. That's not to say that lay people in Japan, for example, are not interested in meditation or the practice of mindfulness, which has, I think, become a little bit more into common parlance these days, even in the West. But certainly in the West itself, it was the practice of meditation and mindfulness that has always been the main plank. The more, I think it's probably, and again, this is my own opinion, as a Western convert in Buddhism who's come through that sort of Western recension of Zen through Buddhist society and so forth, the emphasis on the devotional side has been less pronounced. And again, in my own opinion, I think this is because many of us either came from a more agnostic background or have rejected our original religious background. And so it has become somewhat, there's been more of an emphasis in Western Zen on a sort of humanistic form. Personally speaking, I think this is now being looked at again by many Westerners who realize that something has been missing in our Western understanding of Zen practice. It's important that we practice meditation, and it's certainly important that we practice mindfulness and do the mind or heart training. But it's also extremely important that the warmth, that the devotional practices, devotion to the Buddha, devotion to what are called the Bodhisattvas, who are, if you like, they're sort of similar to Buddhist saints. They represent powers and functions of the Buddha, such as his wisdom and his compassion, is extremely important as well, because one of the important teachings in Mahayana Buddhism is the teaching of what's called the Buddha nature. And this is, if you like, it's the spiritual, Buddha nature is the spiritual power, if you like, in Mahayana Buddhism, in Buddhism in general. Quite often people say, oh, the thing about, and I've heard Buddhism sometimes described as an atheistic religion. It's not an atheistic religion, it's a non-theistic religion. And the difference between that is that non-theistic simply means that we do not give a form or as such to this spiritual power. It is simply known as the Dharma or the Buddha nature. It is the ground of our being. It's the fundamental principle from which all life springs and to which it returns as well. And it's left in a sense of mystery. It's left as unknowable. And yet it's to be realized as part of our practice as well. And so the practice that we saw earlier from the Noble Eightfold Path, the practice of Shila practice, the ethical living, the meditation, and also the wisdom practice, the development of wisdom as well. That's the ability to be able to see things clearly as they really are, is all geared towards the realization of the Dharma. This spiritual power in ourselves and in other beings and in all things. And from that arises this awareness of an equality that exists amongst all beings. And hence our reverence and our devotions, our recognition that, as it says in one of the Mahayana sutras, that all things are Buddha things. And that if we really recognize that all things are Buddha things, then I'm a Buddha thing, you're a Buddha thing. All the people and beings that we encounter, whether living or animate or inanimate, are also Buddha things. Then, as it were, it allows that warmth of heart to be cultivated as well. And it's out of that warmth of heart that the great compassion arises too. So just to go back, what do we do in Western Zen? Well, we obviously have a regular mindfulness and meditation practice. We go to the temple. We also practice chanting as well, which is a devotional act. We go on retreat also. We join the monks and the nuns as lay people. We can even spend time in the temple. As we heard in the Thai tradition, they have temporary ordinations. We also in Zen, we do have ordinations obviously as well. I myself used to be a monk for a number of years, but obviously I've returned to lay life too. Just to say in Japanese Zen is slightly different, because I know the question was asked earlier about celibacy and marriage and so forth. So in Japanese Zen, after the Meiji Restoration of 1868, in fact, Buddhist monks were forced to marry, and they obviously liked it because they kept the tradition even when that epoch came to an end. So what happens is that a young man or a young woman will go and train, and they will be celibate for that period of training. But then they will ordain again and they will become a priest, and then they will take over a temple. And after they've done that, then they can get married and raise a family as well. A little bit like perhaps the Anglican model is the one that perhaps would be most familiar. I think that's more or less it. I think that's my sort of 15 minutes of fame. So thank you very much, and I'll leave it there. And we can take in, obviously, any further questions we can take later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. This is adding yet a little more to a very complex picture, which is, well, but it's also, to me, it's fitting in very well. But the person I want to bring in now is, I never know which name to call him. Bao Sen is what I've known him as a friend. And he is, well, an authority who's been all over the place and been at universities talking, and is now based at Hong Kong University, done a lot of studies. He's just got so much to his credit. But the sort of thing we're doing now is to bring in, to bring in, as I say, I never know what to call him. To me, he's Bao Sen because he's a great friend. So can I ask you to come in and talk to us about your work?
Thank you for Mr. Morris inviting me to this meeting. And I will give small talks about my study, actually. But I would say first, I will be sorry. In my talk, you probably don't see any photos and probably not too much story or the miracle things, because I come from the institute, the academic institutes. So I will give a talk to what is the Buddhism from the academic perspective. Next slide. Actually, first, when I prepare for this talk, I would present one of my papers, which is a study on the subject of self-awareness. That means how our mind, understanding our mind itself. But yesterday we have a small meeting with Mr. Morris and Mr. Molly, and they think my talk is a little too academic, might bring some confusion. So they asked me to do something easier. Therefore, I think I will present it in this way. I will give a very brief introduction to my my papers, and I will explain a little bit how I become a Buddhist, or how I become a monk. Well, actually, I am a monk, a Tibetan monk, not Chinese monk, but a Tibetan monk. But I am a Chinese. I live in Hong Kong and hold a passport of BNO, so that I can somehow call myself an English. There's just too many identity I have. Therefore, Mr. Morris, he as in his introduction, he don't know how to call my names. I have so many names. Even I don't know how to call my names. Sometimes some of my friends call in at my parents' house when they pick up the phone and they hear someone looking for someone, and they think you have the wrong number, and they cut the line. But actually, someone is looking for their son. But they use the name they don't know. Their son have such a name. It doesn't matter. Identity or name is just a name. It's not about the truth. And all the Buddhism is about the truth. And in my papers, indeed, there's 3 issues. The arguments about the ontologic in that way. 2 schools from the Mahayana Buddhism. One is called Madhyamika, one is called Yogacarin. Maybe in English we call the school of middle way, or the school of mind only. When one claims the truth is nothing is the truth. The truth is nothing is true in our words. And on the other hand, the Yogacara or the my only school, they say, no, the truth is nothing, but the cognition is true. This is what they argue about. Please, next. And then the Madhyamika will ask, we will argue what they think when we say that if something it does exist, then we can know it. If something it does exist, then we can know it. Now my only school said the cognition is true. It does exist. Then how do you know it? So the Yogacharin, the my only school answered, the cognition can know itself. The cognition can know itself. That brings a new concept, self-awareness. Self-awareness. And this argument the arguments change from the ontologic to the epistemologic. Please, next. Again, the middle way school raised their question. How can you prove that? You say there is the cognition or the mind is true, and the mind can know itself. And how can you prove that? So now the argument changed from the epistemologic to the logic, the method we can use to know the truth. Please, next. And for this, the Yogacharin answered. So when we can remember something, when something can be remembered by us, and that thing should be perceived before. For example, when we say, oh, when we remember, when we have something, some memory come up to our mind in the form of I saw the flower yesterday, that means the flower was seen by you yesterday at least. If you don't saw the flower yesterday or before, you can't say, oh, I remember I saw the flower. And then the Yogacharin say, when you say, I saw the flower, saw is a word, is a vision, is about a cognition of the flower. So that means something, the cognition is remembered at the moment. And that means the vision of the flower yesterday, in yesterday, the vision of the flower should be perceived or experienced. So therefore, there should be a self-awareness. However, this kind of a reasoning against get the opponent, again, the Madhyamika, the middle way school, they argued. No, they say this reasoning is not correct because in your proof, you put the self-cognized, mean the self-awareness as a reason. However, the self-awareness is something in question now. We don't agree, we don't have a common agree on the existence of the self-awareness. So you cannot use the self-awareness in your proof to establish the self-awareness. So this is all about the arguments in my papers. I will not go through all the details in this talk, but I want to use this example to explain why I become a monk. Please, next. Compare with the philosophy, the Buddhist philosophy, to those we call so-called the Western philosophy or general philosophy, we find something different. That is, if we talk about, usually we talk about philosophy, we talk about many thinking about the truth, only the thinking about the truth. But the philosopher, they would not tell you what to do with this truth and why I have to learn this truth and why I have to know this truth. What is the truth about the world is, it seems nothing relevant to our daily practice or our free meals in the days. But a religious philosophy or the Buddhist philosophy, they will deal with the goals or a purpose is the liberation. In Sanskrit, we call nirvana. And what it means is the cessation of the suffering and affection. And this is relevant to our life, to every day of our life. When I was young, I'm not born as a Buddhist also. I was not born as a monk when I was young. Actually, I come from a Catholic family, and I was with my aunt, my parents in the church. But I'm not let's say I'm not a good boy. When I'm in the church every week, I raise a lot of philosophy because I don't know where the question come from. They just come up to my mind when the priest giving the talk, and I have a lot of questions asked. Why it is true, and what is that true word for me? And then with so many questions, and finally I convert myself. When I meet the Buddhism, I convert myself a Buddhist, and I change my living style when I go to the monastery for study, and I become a monk. And then after 10 years, I stay in the Tibet area, the snow mountain you just saw in the previous presentation. After 10 years, I was living in the Tibetan monastery, and I think I have the time to go back to the university. I have to use the scientific method to examine what I learned from the Buddhist tradition. To me, if one claims he or she believes something, or he or she want to practice something, or she or he want to do meditation on something, probably better we should confirm what we are going to do is true and it works for our purpose or for our wills. So with these things, I please next. This is what I learned, as I will sum up in just one line. What I learned from the Tibet, from the Buddhism. What Buddhism told us is all our people, our people have the wrong view about the whole world. And because of the wrong view, we think there must be something, either this or not, or that is real. Our family, our property, everything we have or we see, there at least something, or at least I or ourselves, it should be true, something true, or something real. And then, according to this kind of a view, we have enough reason to love what make our happy, to hate who give our harm. However, all those happy or let's say all those reaction will cause again the effect to our life, and that kind of effects can construct the whole life that's our present life. But to me, when I was young, I was working in a company, a toys company. One day is when I get up, go on the bus going to the office, I suddenly realized I have the plan that day I would do, and I know I would go to see a customer, and I saw this customer every year. Actually, when he come to Hong Kong to buy our products, and I know what actually that is one from British, actually from England, and I know what is the market there because we have already do the business for 3 years. I will introduce some new items, and the same contract, the same shipment, the same LC, everything is almost the same. And suddenly I feel, no, this is too boring to me. I can't spend my whole life for something repeat and repeat. It looks new from 1996 to 1997 to 1998. It seems something new, but actually the contents of in my life is just something repeat. So I decided to go to learn something new, and I go to learn Tibet to Buddhism, and I got the answers. It says, no, this is nothing for us. It's real. It's nothing for us. It's real for our attachment, for us to love, to hate. And if we can put this aside, we might see the truth, a new truth. We might have the peace and, let's say, happiness. But happiness is something, I would say peace. But more than that, please the next. More than that, what I learned from the Buddhist is this. Please, the next. This is the original text. I will give a translation. Yeah, this is my translation. I encounter one of the Buddha's teaching as like this. I translate. In Buddhism or in Buddhists, they don't even just tell you what is true, and you come to just simply follow and believe. They ask you, Buddha himself asks you, don't trust what I taught, just because your faith and just because of the other things, but you have to depend on the examination, depends on your own experience and the logical thinking. And that is really academic thinking to me. And therefore, I follow Buddha's teaching, and I try to learn the method, the scientific method, to examine what the true state in the Buddhism. And after since 1992, I met the Buddhism, and 1996 I go to India. The first time I go to India for the full-time study of my study of Buddhism. Almost 30 years gone, and I think I can now say I have no way to put my faith on the others. I put my faith on the Buddhists. Next, please. And then I think after, when we have the scientific method, after the examination on the what is the truth is, if it is something we can rely on, then we can start our practice, like what the Sutra, Dhammapada Sutra say. Now we can adapt it. This actually already explained by the master, the Thai master also. And this is all we say: not doing the evil deeds, gathering all the wholesome, purifying your mind, the meditation, and that's all the Buddhists. And that's all. If from a monk, from the perspective of a monk, is in university, I can introduce the Buddhism as in this way. Thank you all.
Well, thanks very much, whatever we are to call you.
Baozen.
Baozen, okay, as we always do. Now, what I would like to do at the moment, I'm sure people have questions. I don't know how many questions have been actually written down.
We've got three quite big questions, Jeff.
Yes, go
on. Do you want me to go on? Yes.
Yes, please, John.
Okay. It's a question to Wayne Lee. Does the Chinese government freely allow your Buddhist practices in Tibet without interference?
Yes.
Yes, there's no problem in Tibet to practice the Buddhist practice Buddhism. There's no problem at all. The government doesn't do anything for this, because from the official record, there's about more than between 200 million to 300 million people in China, they believe Buddhism. So it's very popular. The Tibetan Buddhism is very popular in China. And across the whole China or in every city, in the Tibet as well. So there's no problem at all at the moment.
Do you know roughly how many monks there are in China overall?
Multi-millions, as I know.
Oh, really? Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot. Thank you very much for that, Wayne. I very much appreciate it. Can I move on to the next question, please?
May I have something on this question?
Okay.
Since I also stay in Tibet for about 10 years, maybe I can have something different. Well, what indeed in Tibet, or even in the whole China, Buddhist practices actually is not so free. That's the of course, if for personal what you want to do for your practice, if in a very small group or in secret, so maybe we can say that quick because mind is free. No one, someone can capture your body, they cannot capture your mind. But indeed, for the whole Tibetan religious practice, not free in Tibet. For example, I will give you an example. I published a book. I translate from the Tibetan, actually it's Buddhism. If now it's not possible to publish in China. 5 years ago, I catch the first, I said last chance to publish. But nowadays, when I want to do the second edition, I was informed it's not possible right now. And also, if people in Tibet, if you want to practice as a group in the monastery, if you're going too big, you will have the problem. At that time, when I was in that is let's say called 1998. Yes, 1998 to 2005, when I was in Tibet. Even at that time, I had to escape from the monastery of the police. Every time when the police come to our Buddhist college, I had to hide myself in my room, not go outside to bring any trouble. And that is, of course, it depends what the area you live in, because I think the Mr. Lee, when you show, I saw your presentation, because the place you go, it seems far away from the central government. Maybe they can have some freedom in that area. I would not argue with that. But for the whole Tibet, for example, if you go to Lhasa, I cannot go to Lhasa because I hold a Hong Kong ID card. If I want to buy the air ticket, I can go to everywhere in China, the other places than the Tibet. But if I go to Tibet, I can't go to Tibet. Once I was traveling in the Kham area, means the east of Tibet, not the central Tibet. I was in by a river. The other side is the central Tibet. All my friends, the China friends, they can go, but I cannot cross that bridge. I stopped by the police. That's my experience, my experience from my own. So this is true. And also, actually, you know that the situation in Hong Kong now. You might read it from the newspaper.
Thank you very much.
Wayne, can I ask you, what sort of daily life do you lead now, given this relationship with Tibet and going from time to time and having a master there? What kind of daily life do you lead? Because I think you have a business, don't you?
Me?
Yes. No, I was asking.
I'm studying in the Buddhist college, actually.
Sorry.
In the monastery, there's many monasteries have two different kinds. One is the college, like the traditional academic, the monastic academic. But of course, there's another one. It's just how to say, the general temple. They don't educate the monks. So where I stay is the monastery college, monastic college. So I study there, debating, learning, reading books.
But I was going to ask Wayne Lee.
Sorry.
No, if you don't mind. You're the boss of the thing. But I was going to ask him, what sort of daily life do you have when you're not in Tibet? I mean, how does it affect the way you live?
Yes, I was a designer and artist because my whole family are designer and artists. I'm running my own artist business in London here at the moment. So this is kind of my daily life. I'm setting up my business, doing some sort of like a city things as people living in the city. But from what I learned from the Tibetan Buddhism, but actually it's a Buddhism. There's no difference between Tibetan Buddhism and Buddhism. What I learned from the Buddhism is we are living in a virtual world. Everything are virtual. Everything are just kind of like information. So what I learned is, because in Buddhism, there's a lot of talking about you can't do bad things, you need to do good things, or these sort of things. But it's all about the right information. You just need to have the right behave. You just need to think the right things. You just need to do the right things. You just need to. But this is kind of like in the certain level. You just be a good person. So, well, if you're asking me, my daily life is about like when I run my business, how to deal with the people, when I'm doing all these sort of business things and the daily life, I try to use this sort of the understanding on my daily life. Try to be good. Try to be good to myself. To be good to others, and yeah, this is kind of like a simple way of understanding. Be a good person. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a deeper understanding of the Buddhism, if you want to practice the Buddhism, that's in a completely different level. You need to understand more things. You need to understand all these sort of things are just illusion. All these sort of things are just virtual. It's just coming out from your mind. So you need to purify your mind. You need to continue to purify your mind, and you need to understand the non-duality, to try to understand the emptiness at the end. So this is another level of understanding. But yeah, this is what I'm doing every day.
Yeah, and then I'll shut up. But so this is all part of the thing of trying to separate your selfish interest, to get away from focusing on self, which in fact was a key principle I understand of the Buddha, to focus on the total, on reality, instead of focusing on yourself, because that is why we suffer, because we worry about preserving ourselves, and we should try to eliminate our focus on ourselves. Is that right?
Yeah, from the Buddhism, there's a clear saying that all the negative things to our life, like the negative mind and the negative, even the negative so-called physical things, they all coming from your selfness, kind of.
Yeah.
So the whole Buddhism practice until the end, when you achieve the emptiness, is about how to remove the selfness from your mind. But this is in the level of when you're really a practitioner, and you need to experience this sort of a mind every day and every hour, every second of your life, to try to understand. But when I'm running my business when I'm running my business here every day, when I'm living as a city person, but this is kind of like a separate things. When you are where yeah.
Okay.
That's all I can see. Yeah.
John, have you got?
Yes, thank you very much, Wayne. Can I just ask Bo Seng, please? May we have copies of your papers if there's anything else you'd like to suggest reading to learn about your ideas? That's to Bo Seng. Tabo saying hello? Is he here?
Bo said,
保生
Oh,
保生师傅 ，Hello，
is he there?
保生，你在
Sorry, I muted myself. I muted myself. Sorry.
？OK， 保生师傅，
Yeah.
他问你一个问题，刚才那个 John 问你一个问题。
Yes.
OK, John, can you repeat, please?
Yes. May we have copies of your papers? If there's anything else that you'd like to suggest reading to learn about your ideas.
My ideas.
Yes.
You mean some friends is interested in my papers?
Yes, relating to your.
Oh, I see. Okay, that actually in the journal of Indian philosophy, I have 2 papers published, and my dissertation is published in University of Leipzig. From their library, we can search. Or if anyone want to see, I can send to Mr. Morris. I think so. All of you can contact contact with Mr. Morris, and
yes.
please distribute my papers.
Thank you very much. It's very kind.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Can I ask another separate question? In Buddhism, it's believed that everything is interconnected, and some may think that the coronavirus pandemic or natural disasters suddenly happened to us. Did this happen because we humans have done something to deserve it? How would you answer?
A question to me?
Yes, you could do. If you could, please, I'd be very grateful.
I miss Mr. Wang.
Do you want me to read it again? Question again.
Is it a question on
yes,
the chat?
Yes, it's a question. Yeah, it's in Buddhism, it is believed that everything is interconnected, and
I see. Interconnected. It should be first consider what type of connected. It's not always all kind of connected, but we can, let's say, direct or indirect. The whole world is connected together, and I think the most important is one type of connection is the cause and effect. The cause and effect. That is what the most Buddhism talk about, and because if we can understand or we can look through this a law of cause and effect, we might find a way to build the correct way to live, the correct way to act. Is that my answer?
We can't. I think the people are quite worried about the coronavirus pandemic being something that's happened to us because we've deserved it.
We deserved it, and Buddhists, we think in this way. Yes, we can blame the others. We blame the virus, but what that will come to us if for example, there is a teaching from Bodhisattva Shantideva, what he taught in the Buddhist in the books. When you fight with your enemy, well, actually it's 2 people. One from your enemy and another one is you. So if we always blame the situation, that's kind of an unpleasant situation to the enemy. And what benefit us if we can stop the hatred or to do the harm to the other from our side, to get the peace from our mind. Maybe that is the way to free ourselves, from the trouble and from the suffering. So from this aspect, I think I would not say we deserve it, but I think we can say there's a reason. Deserve it? In English, it seems we're doing something not good, but we can accept it. This must be something we've done before. Well, now is the time we take the result. For example, maybe we can better, we human being doing something better to the whole world, to this earth, and we can have less problem from the feedback. I think the recent several decades, we people do harm the earth too much. And now maybe it's the time we get the feedback. We get the feedback from the earth, from the nature. So if we think that's something we do something before, so now we can do something good or do something better than to create a better future, maybe, let's say in this way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can I ask a question possibly to, is Martin still there? Hello. There's a question that's come through and says that trying to think of Muslims who dedicate their lives in a similar way, their aims to connect with the divine by staying away from worldly matters, worldly relations, etc., and try to eliminate the self, ego. These people also stay for long periods in caves and isolated places. So I find that interesting. The questioner says, my question is, when you leave that place of isolation and enter a worldly life, do you find it a challenge? Do you prefer to live in isolation?
Well, I think there's two questions there. One is about preferences, and the other is perhaps about what's good for the spiritual practice as well. Because yes, I mean, each of us has a preference, and some people like to, as it were, live remotely. Other people like to live in the middle of the world and worldly things. But a spiritual practice, and I think this is certainly very much reflected in Buddhist practice, has to contain both. So, for example, we will have periods of retreat, which is what you were mentioning about your own sages who go and live remotely for a time. But my guess is that sages are never allowed to live remotely forever. They have to come back to the world, or people will go to them because they will develop a reputation, and so people will want to consult with them, and that's been the same with hermits throughout, you know, many religions and throughout history. So you have this balance. So quite often, as we hear, you can have a period away from the world, which allows you to develop, as it were, that sort of spiritual center within oneself. But then one has to take it out into the world to be of service to others. Otherwise, it becomes selfish, or it can become selfish, and of course that would be completely counterproductive. So, I guess in answer to the question, it requires both, and I think that if you actually look at the lives and the biographies of people who've done that, of spiritual sages of different religions, you will often see that they have periods where they do retreat for a time, and then they become available to be of service to others, either through teaching or through setting a good example, or intervening at some point in times of trouble. I was wondering, could I just also comment on the question about karma and the coronavirus?
Yes.
Okay. I think just on the teaching of karma, I think it's very important to be clear about that there are different interpretations, and we have to be sure that the interpretation that we understand in Buddhism is aligned to the Buddha's own teaching, because sometimes karma can be interpreted as a sort of, you know, well, it's your fault that happened to you. Therefore, you know, as it were, And that is absolutely not the Buddha's that's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha was the all-compassionate one. And our understanding of, and certainly the understanding I've always been brought up with of karma, is that it's more along the line of what's called the golden rule, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you, being perhaps the most one of the better known ones. And karma is the same thing, really. That you know, when we see people suffering from coronavirus or from anything, really, you know, it's sort of there but for the grace of God. That is the attitude we take to it. You know, that in an understanding that this is one of many lives, that we've had countless lives previously and will have countless lives in the future. If we see people dying of disease now, then that will be myself in a future life. And how would I like to be treated? And that's the understanding that brings compassion. So how we understand, it's not just the case of the teaching of karma, it's how we understand karma. The interpretation of karma that leads to compassion, developing compassion in oneself, that is the teaching of the Buddha. And that's what I was brought up with.
Thank you very much.
Can I just come in there for a moment?
Yes.
I think our Thai representative sadly had to go and get his lunch, and he got a late lunch at that. So I don't think he's going to be able to respond. But one thing I think from the Thai point of view, one of the things that happens is all these temples with golden roofs, they're often linked, because Jen and I spent a time in Thailand actually studying Thai Buddhism. And one of the things that we were told is that as people approach, as they get older, they try to give things away to show that they are not concerned with themselves. They deliberately, therefore, build up good karma. And one of the ways they do it is to splash out a lot of money on a temple. And the temple often becomes the resting place for their ashes. And it's in order to build up extra karma, so to ensure that they will, you know,
Their soul will have a rest.
their soul will what?
Have a rest.
Have a rest. I just throw that in, and anybody to comment, I don't know.
Just to say, I think on the teaching of karma again, what that does is it links benefit for oneself to benefit for others as well. Yeah. That anything that promulgates zero sum, i.e. that I can accrue a benefit and your loss is okay to me. That's the exact opposite. So karma links together benefit for oneself with benefit for everybody or others or part of the community. It's about linking those two things together. And if they come apart, then one's motivation is becomes selfish.
But by the merit, or they gain merit through the giving money to temples. Is that right?
Through practice,
yes.
Meritorious deeds or good works. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, they gain merit karma. Yeah. I think the time has come. Sorry, we've got a question there from Francis Graves.
I just wanted to pick up on the question about, do we deserve the coronavirus? I think just stepping up to the level of us as a species, there are certainly plenty of scientists out there that are arguing that because we've encroached on the wildernesses of this world, because we've not cared sufficiently about how we've treated other animals, etc., we've enabled a virus to jump from animal species to ourselves. And this isn't the first one that's done that. And of course, as they jump and that as they mutate, etc., they can become more dangerous. And so the coronavirus is a direct consequence of the way we've treated the Earth. Some scientists, including, I think, David Attenborough,
I think
his recent series on the perfect planet illustrates
I agree with that.
what we've done. So in that sense, whilst we might set aside the moral issue of do we deserve it, it seems we've certainly caused it. As a
Interesting comment, yes.
Thank you very
I
much.
think the time has come, unfortunately, when we said we'd close the meeting, because, you know, and I'd just like Margaret to have a last word.
Oh, that's dangerous, isn't it? I'm sure that we were all feeling very humbled in appreciation of the depth of commitment of all our speakers to their belief in Buddhism. It has been so enlightening, and we've heard from people who have dedicated or are dedicating their lives. And it's interesting how the core is the same, but within Buddhism you can have the branches of challenging, living, being and existing, and very much the truth behind that. I would like to thank enormously Jeff and John for all the hard work, and today Cather for your screen expertise, so that we were able to see the most wonderful, wonderful pictures, which have helped us almost feel part and within the words that have been spoken. If anybody is interested, we are this year looking similarly into other religions, and our next meeting will be in May, and we're looking at the differences within Sikhism. So any of our friends who are listening and have joined today would like to make sure they're on the mailing list. We will very happily invite you to join us. We've had 35 people viewing today, because some people have been 2 in a room. So it has been a very, very good experience for us all. So may I wish you safety, may I wish you all health and joy in just existing. God bless you all. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.